Last night, Baylor Women's Basketball has clinched at least a share of the Big 12 title for the 12th straight year over Iowa State, and it wasn't even close, as the score was 87-62. I want to dive into why that happened. Sure, it's obvious to say Baylor had 5 double-digit scores to Iowa State's just below 1, but I'm going to dive into more than that. First of all, Nalissa Smith had an unbelievable game. 28 points, 20 rebounds. She did turn the ball up 4 times, but that was the only negative I saw in her game. And she made 6 of 7 on free throws, 11 for 15 overall. Queen Edbo had 10 points on 5 for 8 shooting, and she was dealing with foul trouble, as she had 4 fouls, which she was very, very efficient. 5 for 8, I mean. And Jordan Lewis just caught fire in the second half. 7 for 14 on overall shooting. 5 for 7 on threes with 23 points. Jamie Asbury had 10 points, 2 for 6 from 3, and 4 for 10 overall. And Caitlin Bickle had a great game off the bench. 6 for 8 shooting, and finished with 13 points, including 1 of 2 on free throws, which I wish she would have made the other free throw, but I know she wishes the same thing too. But obviously, Baylor had 19 assists to 13 turnovers, and Iowa State only scored 11 points off turnovers, which isn't that much if you think about it. And Baylor also had 14 second chance points. Granted, Baylor was outscoring fast break points 4 points to 6, but that's still not a lot for either team. But in the bench points, Iowa State on the edge, but it was only about 2 points. 2 points is not a big difference. And Baylor made 8 threes out of 21 offensively, and you made 11 for 13 on free throws. And they also had like 7 blocks in the game and 8 steals, which is impressive. And clearly, every quarter in the game, when you look at it, they were shooting at least 47.4%. It just goes to show Iowa State just can't play defense. I mean, 34 for 66 overall for the game, which is 51.5%. It's simple. If you can shoot the ball that well and defend, you're going to win a lot of games. Iowa State only had 1 player, actually 2 players in double figures, actually. Emily Ryan had 10 points, but 4 for 11 for shooting, and 2 for 2 on free throws. And Ashley Jones had an awful game shooting the ball. Sure, she ended up with 19 points, but 11 of those were free throws out of 12 attempted. She didn't make a single 3. 0 for 8. 4 for 19 overall. So the defense was there, and defensively, sure, the best quarter on offense for Iowa State was the fourth quarter. It's 10 for 15 on field goals, and 47, which is 46.7%. But everything else was 38.5% or worse for Iowa State. And they only made 4 threes out of 22. And they're one of the leading teams in the country in making threes in the game. In fact, 22 of shots of those 56 field goal attempts were threes. So really, all you got to do is just contain the 3 and contain the slashers, and you will be fine. And Baylor out-rebounded them too. I mean, 44 to 30, 26. That's a big difference. I mean, second chance points, Baylor had 14 of those to Iowa State's 9 points in the paint. Baylor had 36. Iowa State had 26. And Baylor outscored them every quarter except the fourth quarter, which was only like a 1-point difference. I mean, 19 to 18 in the first quarter, Baylor scored 22 points. Iowa State scored 11 in the following. And in the third, Iowa State usually is good in the third quarter, but Baylor held them off and held them to 14 points. And you score 28 at the same time. That's pretty good. And sure, the game was tied one time, and Iowa State took the lead for a little bit. But once Baylor got on the run, they were hard to stop. I mean, and that was pretty good job by the Baylor defense. And This win right here for Baylor Women's basketball just shows how, look, we were depleted in the roster and depleted in rotation with 7 players and 8 scholarship players and a walk-on the team. Yet they still continue to win. And not only that, they started 0-2 in the Big 12. And for them to only lose one game after that, 0-2 start, is unbelievable. Granted, I know some of those wins were they were closer in years past, but who cares? A win is a win. And this staff for Baylor Women's basketball deserves all the credit in the world, because I know early on they were struggling. And some people wanted Nicki Collen to be fired after 2 losses in the year overall, and 4 overall with 0-2 start, in the Big 12. But I was not one of those. I wasn't. I knew it was going to take time to get better. I mean, it's not like they lost to anybody bad, really, if you think about it, because Kansas State is still a good basketball team. That's an NCAA tournament, but then you beat them at home by 45 points. Oklahoma, you wish you would beat them once, I know. But hopefully you get that chance to play them again. But maybe not, I don't know. It just depends on what happens in the Big 12 tournament and where seedings are, actually. But you know what I'm saying. And I knew it wasn't easy for them, really, when they had a COVID pause right after their first game. And they were dealing with COVID issues, game number 1 even, against Kansas State. They just deserve a lot of credit. And they still have one more game left. Of course, they technically won the Big 12, really, because even if they lose next game against Texas Tech and Iowa State would win, Baylor owns Iowa State too. They swept them, so they get the first number 1 seed no matter what. But they don't want to share, and I like that. Let's say no sharing allowed here. Anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. I see you guys later. Let's get me up to 400 subscribers or more by the end of this year.